Hello, my name is Stephanie Legg. Today I'm going to be presenting information to you about initiatives and referendums in Arizona. More specifically, I will discuss the basic definitions of each, how they are created, the pros and cons of each, and I will also compare and contrast the two and explain how they support the idea of direct democracy. So first, let's talk about what an initiative and referendum are. An initiative is a process that allows everyday citizens to propose a potential piece of legislation. There are two types of initiatives, direct and indirect. Direct initiatives allow citizens to draft a proposal that goes directly on the ballot. With indirect initiatives, citizens have to collect signatures. After signatures are collected, the state or local governments decides whether to adopt the measure or put it on a ballot. A referendum allows citizens to vote on a policy proposed by a politician or a lawmaker. There are also two types of referendums, legislative and veto. Legislative referendums allow citizens to vote on a ballot measure that originated from the state or local legislator, whereas veto referendums are citizen-initiated ballot measures. Citizens collect signatures to either uphold or repeal existing legislation. So now that we know what initiatives and referendums are, let's talk about how they're created. To start the process of initiative, citizens must first come up with an idea for a new piece of legislation or changes to current legislation. They must then file an application to petition with the Arizona Secretary of State, which must include the names and addresses of the proponents and a summary of the measure. Proponents must then submit the proposal to the Arizona Legislative Council for review. Once the council reviews the ideas, the citizens can then begin collecting signatures in support of the idea in order for it to be added to the ballot. In Arizona, signatures collected is based on the total number of votes cast for the governor in the preceding election. Once enough signatures have been collected, state officials verify the requirements and verify the signatures. If the petition certification is sufficient, the measure will be put on the ballot. And then if the initiative receives the majority of votes, it is approved. So to start the process of a referendum in Arizona, voters can launch a referendum on a newly passed measure within 90 days of being signed by the governor. The voters must then circulate a petition attacking the new measure. Supporting signatures must equal 5% of the votes cast for the governor in the most recent election. If enough valid signatures are collected, the measure does not take effect. Instead, it remains on hold until the next general election. The challenge measure then appears on the ballot as a numbered proposition. Voters then decide if it should be approved. If the majority votes yes, the referendum fails. If the majority rejects the proposition, the referendum has succeeded and the people have vetoed the law. So now I'm going to compare and contrast referendums and initiatives. Initiatives and referendums are both forms of direct democracy that enable citizens to participate in the decision-making process. Both initiatives and referendums need a certain level of public support to proceed, and both are determined by majority vote. In contrast, initiatives are proactive and referendums are reactive. This means that initiatives give citizens the opportunity to propose their own laws and amendments, whereas referendums enable citizens to reject laws passed by the legislator. Another difference is that initiatives are initiated by citizens or interest groups, where referendums are initiated by the government. So we're going to move on to the pros and cons of each. We'll start with initiatives first. So we'll start with the pros. So first off, they allow citizens to propose new laws and have their voices heard. They also foster a sense of civic engagement and responsibility. They hold lawmakers accountable. So if the legislator fails to address an issue that is important to the people, they can propose their own legislation through a ballot initiative. So moving on to the cons of initiatives. So the first thing is special interest groups often fund initiatives, and they often have their own agenda and can use their financial resources to push their own interests. And we also need to talk about how voters may not have the necessary expertise or information to make informed decisions. Okay, moving on to referendums and the pros of referendums. So first off, referendums allow people to directly participate in the decision-making process. They also enable citizens to check on legislation by allowing voters to reject laws. The government is also more likely to make policies that align to the values and priorities of the citizens because of referendums. The cons of referendums are that they can divide communities along political, social, and economic lines. And also, the majority role in referendums may disregard the needs of minority groups. And lastly, misinformation can affect the results of referendums. Last thing we're going to talk about is how the Arizona Constitution supports the idea of direct democracy through the use of initiatives and referendums. So in a direct democracy, the people decide on the policies. Initiatives and referendums enable citizens to have a direct say in their government. Initiatives support the idea of direct democracy because it allows voters to bypass the legislator and initiate and adopt their own laws or amendments. Referendums support the idea of direct democracy by giving voters the opportunity to approve or reject measures passed by a legislator. Through these processes, citizens are active participants with greater political rights. So now if we discuss what referendums are and what initiatives are, how they're created, the pros and cons of each, how they're alike and how they're different, and how they support direct democracy. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and learned some new information about initiatives and referendums. Thank you.